If you could try to really compress it. I know that's a difficult request. Appreciate that. Okay, taking it back to staff. If you could try to really compress it. I know that's a difficult request, but I think you'll be asked a lot of questions along the way. So if you could just focus on the main issues. Please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in the interest of time, and given that we've not heard anything that has not been addressed in either our presentation today or in our staff report, we're not going to be responding directly to the public testimony. We think it would be more productive to answer any questions the Commission may have. However, I do have some concluding comments. First of all, I think we all agree and recognize that the ongoing historic drought is a crisis in California, and that desalination facilities will be part of California's future water portfolio. Unfortunately, the desalination project that is before you today is the wrong project in the wrong place at the wrong time. This project is simply antithetical to all of the sea level rise guidance documents both the Commission and the Ocean Protection Council has produced to date. And the hard fact of the matter is, this project is in a very vulnerable location, no matter what sea level rise scenario you choose to apply here. And here in California, we're experiencing and seeing the devastating impacts associated with climate change in real time. And those terrible impacts are only going to accelerate over time. And given this fact, and given the uncertainty with sea level rise models, it is critical that we are using a precautionary principle when siting new critical infrastructure facilities, which we should be focusing on moving development, especially critical infrastructure facilities, out of historic wetlands that are vulnerable to sea level rise and flooding, not doubling down and putting more critical facilities at risk. I'm also concerned about the message that this is going to send to our local governments and future applicants if this project is approved. If the Commission cannot even adhere to our own guidance and make the hard decision, how can we expect others to follow our sea level rise guidance? And yes, an island can be built in the middle of this vulnerable area where the facility itself will be safe, but the surrounding area and the critical infrastructure supporting this project will either be eventually flooded by increased or more intensive storms or inundated eventually by sea level rise or rising groundwater. And building this artificial island in this historic wetland also reduces the adaptive capacity of the surrounding area. Again, these historic wetlands adjacent to urban development should be targeted for the removal of vulnerable development and critical infrastructure. And those areas should be targeted to be restored to salt marsh or natural upland areas that will buffer the effects of flooding and sea level rise, and also serve to sequester carbon and advance the state's 30-30 plan. In my view, the state of California needs to conduct a comprehensive siting survey to identify the best locations for future desal facilities around the states. Around the state, not the states. Identifying the sites that are safe from sea level rise, flooding, seismic hazards, and are designed to minimize impacts on ocean and coastal resources, and that are sized appropriately for the location. And these sites should be prioritized based on the critical need of the new water supplies for a particular area. In addition, all other less environmentally damaging and less expensive water supply alternatives should be explored first, or at least concurrently with desal alternatives. And this approach is similar to the interagency effort that's going on right now for the siting of offshore wind facilities in California. In addition, denial of this project does not mean that we're setting the stage for the denial of all desal facilities or other critical infrastructures across the state. Every project has a different set of circumstances, facts, and context. In fact, the Doheny project that is just south of here, that will be before the Commission in the next couple of months, is an example of a desal project that has been designed to avoid the problems and issues associated with this project. The other troubling thing about this project is the lack of a coherent and adequate mitigation program for the project's significant impacts on marine life. The mitigation proposals we have just recently received for this project appear to be just shoehorning in a mitigation project onto existing wetland restoration projects and is not very well thought out. As Dr. Huckelbridge explained, mitigation projects are a different animal than pure restoration projects. They are more complicated, and they need to be more carefully and thoughtfully designed with very robust monitoring and adaptive management protocols. And we have learned some hard lessons over the years with other large-scale mitigation projects that had some fits and starts. And as staff mentioned, these large, complicated mitigation projects take many years to actually complete and to realize that full mitigation requirements. And the temporal loss of marine organisms must be factored into those mitigation plans if the plant is allowed to operate before the mitigation project is complete. The other troubling thing is that the measures to harden and build this plant to the level 4 is likely to result in additional impacts to the surrounding area and resources which have not been analyzed. In addition, the costs associated with upgrading the plant to level 4 and the substantial cost to the proposed mitigation program is going to be passed on to the ratepayers, many of whom we've heard today are low income and cannot afford such exorbitant water rates. This is clearly an environmental justice and social issue that must be considered. And finally, I recognize, like with offshore wind energy projects, the desalination projects may involve some trade-offs to achieve a more sustainable water future for California. But any adverse impacts resulting from these projects must be minimized to the maximum extent feasible, and appropriate mitigation must be required consistent with the law. In my view, this project fails to meet that standard and is a bridge too far and therefore should be denied. But thankfully, that is not a decision for staff to make. All staff can do is provide you, the decision makers, with our best independent professional recommendation based on the facts, sound science, and the spirit and intent of the law without bias or malice. And this is what we have done. So now it's your turn to weigh all the evidence, the testimony, the science, and the law, and render your good judgment. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair. Thank you.